Shall we begin?
Still to come on Legion.
I see things, okay? It's not real, it's my brain.
That's the old narrative, son. We're gonna make you whole again.
Could you maybe not break everything this time?
I'm not gonna promise that.
Okay.
Why am I so important?
We're at war, and we're losing. And you may be the most powerful mutant alive.
We need to get my sister back.
You think Melanie's on your side? That bitch's secrets have secrets.
We're having a romance of the mind. You'll help me turn him off.
He's heating up!
Malfunction detected. Malfunction detected. Malfunction detected. Legion. All new Wednesdays at 10.
Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Legion Episode 1, Episode 2 trailer video. Just careful for spoilers if you haven't seen the episode yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to combine the Episode 2 trailer video with my Episode 1 Easter egg video. Most of you said you were pretty jazzed up about the series, the stylized look, the fact that it seems so big. It's great to see an X-Men TV show doing really well. Everybody seems to love it so far. So I'll explain how it's connected to the X-Men movies, what they're talking about for Season 2 already. They're already talking about Season 2. So I'm just going to tie these videos to the Logan giveaway. It's for IMAX gift certificates for the Logan movie. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video about Legion. So be sure to click that bell to enable alerts. I'll be doing weekly videos just depending on how much you guys want to keep talking about this. We'll just see how it goes. It seems like it's going to be really awesome. So we'll talk about top 10 WTF and comic book Easter eggs. Then I'll talk about the trailer for episode 2. So number 10, his origin story, his sister, the suburban upbringing. They had this great short film at the beginning of the episode that sort of tells you how he grew up, started to go crazy, his mutant powers started to activate, and he thought that he was going insane. The whole idea of the series is that what if you're not insane? What if you're not supposed to be normal? What if these powers make you better than everyone else? That was the Sidney Barrett quote when they first meet each other. Like, hey, maybe this is all bullcrap. So in the comics, he is the son of Professor X and Gabriel Haller. He goes to visit this Israeli hospital where she's a mental patient. She's trapped inside her own mind. He uses his psychic abilities to bring her out. They fall in love. They have a child, and that child becomes the David Haller character. So he's part of the X-Men canon. He's appeared in some of the larger crossovers, but he's kind of like this weird character, so you don't see him interact with a lot of the other X-Men in a lot of the big main titles because he's so powerful. So it's kind of hard to tell stories with him because he's an Omega level mutant with almost 1,000 different personalities, each of which has its own different mutant ability. So he displayed telekinetic powers during the episode, but that's just one of his personalities. But because the comics are so crazy with the number of different powers that he has, I have a feeling that they toned it down a little bit for the TV show so that it's a little easier to follow. So he has a bunch of abilities, and it's a lot like when they went to recruit Jean Grey in the X-Men movies. So they go to see her, and she's so crazy powerful that Professor X and Magneto are just a little afraid. Professor X has to slowly talk her down so that she doesn't just completely nuke everybody in the area. But number 9, the X-Men movie connections. So the way they explained this series is that it's sort of like a season 1 test for them to be able to connect to the movies. So it's all about David this season. There are 8 episodes, so it's the story of him discovering his abilities and learning that he's a mutant, what that means, learning about mutant kind in the world, because in the world of the show, mutants exist, people are trying to co-opt them, the government are coming for them, like the government group in this episode. Then you have people like the Mutant Liberation Front, Magneto's group, that are trying to rescue them. So right now, just dating the series, it's sort of like post-First Class, but you look from the stylized costumes and the way everything looks, it's kind of somewhere between the 60s and the 70s so that they can give it that Stanley Kubrick Clockwork Orange look just because it's all about mental patients going crazy. So when we say this connects to the movies, you're talking about characters that are mentioned, things that they use, plot points, big things that happened in the canon of the X-Men films. But what they'll probably do is work up to a Professor X reveal where they say, David, this is who your father is. Now, Patrick Stewart probably isn't going to guest star on the series, but they might have a picture of him. They might have pictures of the classic X-Men eventually in season 2. So they're working up to that. But number 8, The devil with the yellow eyes. Everybody was asking questions about this during the episode. It was the little homunculus that he kept seeing in his visions. He kept hallucinating this crazy Hellraiser-looking demon with yellow eyes. The lights would go red, and it would seem like someone really evil was coming for him. There are two options for who he is, but I think it's more of a comic book thing. But because this is such a psychological drama, we have to acknowledge the A possibility, that this is just an aspect of his dark personality that's emerging, one of his crazier evil personalities from the comics. The other more likely option is that the devil with yellow eyes is actually the Shadow King. Look, he even has yellow eyes in his comic book form. This kind of looks like the thing that we were looking at. He is sort of like this psychic manifestation of dark energy that takes over his mind and controls his body, uses his powers, and turns David super evil. So there are evil personas in David's head, but the Shadow King himself is a separate entity, and this might be who that is. So what happens is that he lives in the body of different peoples. If you remember early in the episode, when they were interrogating him in that emptied out pool, there was the dog in the cage. You heard the growling sound, there was the red light. So every time there's the red light, the Shadow King appears. So that might be the Shadow King hiding inside that body with these government people. But for the most part, they're putting him forward as the main antagonist of the series. But the other option is that David becomes evil and he becomes the main antagonist of the series after he's possessed by the Shadow King. So we'll see how that plays out over the course of season 1. But number 7, the Sydney Barrett character and her powers. So she has body swapping abilities. She's a very rogue-like character. She can't be touched. Like if Rogue touches you, she'll sap your life force. She'll steal your powers. So she's the love interest of the series. And she was telling the truth at the end of the episode when she said, yes, this is real. But I do not think that she was a plant in the psychiatric facility early in the episode. I think they actually threw her in there, but there are a couple times in the episode where you're left to wonder how much of his time in that facility is real, because he keeps jumping back and forth into his memories when he's being interrogated by the government. So there's a point in the episode where Sydney in the Brotherhood of Mutants or the Mutant Liberation Front, whatever you want to call the good mutants, are trying to rescue him, and he's still back in the psychiatric facility. So you have to assume that most of the events of the early part of the episode up to the incident with Sydney body swapping and killing all those people, that's all real. And then after that, every time you go back to that facility, it's just him remembering things in present day, hallucinating things. And for the most part, she's a good character. I do like the actress, and I like the idiosyncrasies that she has, like they're lying in bed together. No, don't touch me. It's just one of those really weird things that you would see on a cable show where they allow characters to be super weird and super interesting. I think it's a lot of fun. This show would not exist if it were on network television. So number 6, Lenny's character when she's alive and when she's dead. So here's the important thing about this. Aubrey Plaza did a great job. She's totally crazy. But in present day, she's dead and she's just a manifestation of David's head. Like she says, I'm dead, they're coming for you. So she becomes David's subconscious, warning him about the government that's coming to take him and study him, pick him apart. But when she's alive, she actually orchestrates the events of that first incident. So you do wonder how much she knows about David. So it seems like what's going on is that she was actually there to keep an eye on David for the good group, just make sure that nothing happened to him and make sure that he unlocked his powers. Because that whole sequence where they do the big incident where all those people end up dying is that Sydney's walking out, David's nowhere to be found, so Lenny steps in front of her and just starts stalling for time till David can run up and kiss her. Now that seems like clear evidence of a plan, like Lenny wanted this to happen so that things would go crazy and David could eventually break out. So either she's working with the good group or she's working with another group like the Shadow King or something like that. But you guys can let me know who you think that she was working with. But now she's dead, she's inside David's mind, so we'll continue to see her character, but she'll just be a manifestation of his subconscious, just saying things that he doesn't say out loud. Number 5, the first telekinetic incident. So this is after college, he stopped taking his meds. So like most mutants, he has an outburst and his powers manifest. He sees it, he's like, oh, this is really cool. But he thinks that he's going crazy because in this world, mutants aren't a really big thing. They've existed for a while, but it's a relatively new idea, so he doesn't know how to handle it. tries to kill himself, and that's how he winds up in the facility that he's in at the beginning of the episode, talking to his sister. And actually, I should say, the sister does not exist in the comics. David Haller is the only child of Professor X and Gabrielle Haller. But number 4 is the second incident with Sydney. The way they explain it is that Sydney, when she body swaps into David's body, has control of his powers and kills a bunch of people. The reason they set it up this way isn't to make Sydney seem like a killer, it's to let you know what happens if the Shadow King, the devil with the yellow eyes, is able to take over David's body. He'll be able to do this to everyone, trap them behind these walls without any doors, all kinds of crazy powers that we haven't seen yet. So it's just a cautionary tale that David himself is a weapon of mass destruction that needs to learn how to control his abilities and prevent other people from taking advantage of him. In the really obvious way, like the Shadow King, like literally taking over his mind, or the government co-opting his abilities, because the way they explain these different factions, number 3, the government group, the interrogator, the Eye, that's actually the name of his character. He's called the Eye. He's sort of like the security man. They have a number of bad mutants working for them, Weapon X style. So it's sort of like the Weapon X program, a bunch of evil people trying to use these mutant abilities for their own purposes. So some of these people are not comic book characters, they're original from the show. The Shadow King himself is from the comics, so there are a number of bad people that are straight out of the comics. But they're sort of one of the 3 factions. You have the Good Mutants, which we'll just call like the Brotherhood of Mutants or the Mutant Liberation Front, 2, the government, and 3, the forces of the Shadow King, who right now we only know is operating by himself, but it seems like he's co-opting the government group, like he's secretly just following them around looking for really powerful mutants to take over. And you find David the most powerful mutant that they've ever seen, and they want to study him, so naturally in comes the Shadow King. So number 2, Sydney's Mutant Liberation Group. You have Ptonomy, Carrie Loudermilk, and Melanie Bird. Those aren't characters from the comics, but you can see some of their powers, like they have the ability to create explosions, fire. There are other people with telekinetic powers that help them escape here, like you see them throwing these giant rocks around during that big action set piece. So I know it seems very Hellfire Club. Melanie Bird seems a lot like Emma Frost just because she's dressed in pure white, posed first class. They're just trying to evoke a lot of that imagery, so we might see some Hellfire Club stuff happening because they're not being used by any of the other movies right now. But they did kind of make it seem like she is actually David's mother. This is the young version of David's mother. They just call her David's mother. They don't call her Gabrielle Haller, but that's her name in the comics. Number 1 is the trailer for the next episode. You just see the montage of them sort of testing his abilities, them learning a little bit more about him. He needs to learn to control them so that he can defend himself against the government, people that would want to use him, and against the really dangerous people like the Shadow King. So the Shadow King is like the big boss. You have to imagine that he's going to keep popping up in David's subconscious in the back of his mind because he's a psychic villain. He's not so much a physical villain like the government group is. But next week's episode is going to be a big montage of them testing his abilities, learning about what's going on inside his head. It's going to be fascinating. Remember, in the comics, he has almost 1,000 different personalities, so it'll be interesting to see how they dilute that for the TV show and explain all that craziness. But let me know, what was your guys' favorite moment from the episode? What do you think about it? I totally love the stylized look, and that's why they chose to set it during this time period, so that they could make it stand out visually a lot more than the other superhero TV shows that you see on right now. So tying his arc together over the course of season 1, I'll leave with this Breaking Bad style idea. David is not in danger. David himself is the danger because of what would happen if the Shadow King is able to take over his mind. So he's not evil himself, but he can be used for great evil, great mayhem. So episode 2, posting next Thursday morning. What's going to happen later tonight is I'll post my Arrow video. I have some new Spider-Man Homecoming, Iron Man that I'll post. That'll probably be Friday morning. I've been posting like 3 videos a day for the last couple of days, so I'm getting ready to die from exhaustion. So I'm going to try to get it back down to 2 videos a day. There's just like so much stuff that's dropping, so much footage, so I'll try to stay on top of all of it. But if you have any bonus video requests for Legion, just leave them in the comments below. While you wait for that, you can click here for new Iron Fist footage, and you can click here to watch a new Logan trailer. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you in the next video.